Hola, buenos dias. Hello, I'm Colin Harkness, international wine judge, wine writer, broadcaster, and occasionally even TV presenter. I'm lucky enough to have been living here in Spain for 18 years now, and during that time I've been writing all about the wonderful wines of my adoptive country, Spanish wine. Spanish wines are marvellous, there's such a great diversity, and I've decided that now is about the right time for me to share my passion over videos, my passion for Spanish wines. I'd like to take you on a virtual trip around Spain, discovering en route the exceptional aromas, the exceptional flavours of the wonderful wines of Spain. I believe that Spain is perhaps the most happening country in wine terms in the whole of the world. And to give you an example of how dynamic the country is, have a look at the label on the bottle that's in front of me. It's called Beso de Vino, the kiss of wine. And you can see a bull there, and this is no bull. You can see a bull there who's called Antonio. And he's had a kiss of the wine, he's tasted the wine, and now he's travelling all over the world telling people the good news about this particular wine. Well, there's a clear reference to the export market here, and there's nothing wrong with that, at all. My feeling is that if the wine is good and proud, well, let's say it loud. The back label too is very catching. There's a pastiche of comments about the wine, tasting notes, information about it, etc. And all of that is overlooked by a lovely red heart, which again gives some idea about the romance of this particular wine. Well, that's a good start, isn't it? But of course, what's most important is the contents. People will determine whether they want to actually taste the wine again, having bought it from the shelf, having been attracted by the wine label. It's the contents which will determine whether they buy subsequent bottles. My own feeling is that Bodegas Grandes Vinos y Viñedos, who make the wine, will not need to worry here. This wine is actually made in Denominación de Origen Cariñena. Denominación de Origen, DO as it's often shortened to. This means that it's a specific geographical area where they are allowed to make wines of certain grape varieties, and there are a lot of other regulations as well. That's what we do over here in Europe. We sort of tie our hands a little bit in regulations. But it's quite interesting because, don't be confused, there is actually a grape variety called Cariñena as well. But the irony is that in DO Cariñena, there's very little Cariñena, the grapevine, grown. This wine is actually made from Syrah, and it's also made from Garnacha. It's a blended wine. There is 85% Syrah in this particular grape variety, and that makes a big difference to the final flavour of the wine. Syrah, sometimes known as Shiraz, is often thought of as having a natural home in France, and certainly the wines of the Rhône, which are mostly made of Syrah, have a certain opulence and a certain enjoyment value as well. But here in Spain, I believe there's a little bit more to it, because here we have very often more hours of sunshine, it's warmer here. And I think in this sense, Syrah wines made in Spain can sometimes be richer than those made over in France. Now, the 85% is interesting, but there's also that 15%, and this is made with Spain's national grape variety, Garnacha, sometimes known as Grenache. The Grenache or Garnacha vines which made this wine are 40 years plus old. Now, this means that they produce fewer grapes. Hey, we all sort of slow down with age, don't we? But don't worry, because the grapes that are produced are the richer for it, and this makes a very fruit-orientated, fruit-driven wine. And that's what the winemaker here wants. We don't want a wine which is so complex, we need a degree in wine appreciation. No, we want to be able to taste a wine which is great for aperitif and also good for food as well. But we don't want to have to study it. We want to enjoy it with a smile. We don't want the furrowed brow of a student of wine appreciation. What we've actually got here is a wine which is lovely and dark coloured. It's very fruit orientated, and let me tell you, I've actually never tasted a wine from Dio Carignano which isn't fruit orientated. Let's actually put our noses in and have a whiff of it. It's got a lovely nose, it really has. Put it on the palate and let it warm up in a moment. There'll be a slight pause now, you'll probably be glad. I'll have to shut up a little bit, but let me taste it. Yeah, ooh, lovely wine. Very fruit orientated. I'm looking here at black cherries particularly, a little bit of plum. Maybe some blueberries in there, but we don't get very many blueberries here in Spain, so that's a bit hard for me to recall. Certainly there's black cherries. You might find a little herbiness to it, and also, you know, sometimes you get a black and white peppermill. Once it's been ground, there's a certain aroma comes out of it. When you get that, this is a typical characteristic of Syrah. You get all of that combined together, and you get a nice warming finish to it. It's a lovely warm wine, as I say, to drink with friends, but it's also got that slight, a little bit of a licorice bitter end to it, which makes it a wine which is going to be lovely with food as well. We're talking here of light and darker meat dishes, and I think this wine is going to be lovely with that as well. It's not a frivolous wine. It's not just a here today, gone tomorrow wine. It has a mid-length finish to it, which gives some sort of idea of the quality, albeit that it's not actually an expensive wine. And something else about it is that this wine is made with, it's closed rather, with a screw cap, and so that makes it even more orientated. This wine will give you a nice kiss. And that sounds like a little bit of a dodgy end, and who knows where it's going to lead when you're actually drinking this with a friend. I'll leave you with that rather dodgy thought, and I look forward to you seeing me again next week, when I'll be talking about another wine from another area of Spain. For your information, you can visit the website of this wine. It's actually www.besodevino.com, where you'll see that there are other Beso Divino wines made as well, and I'm sure you'll be able to order online if that's what you want, if you can't find it where you are at this particular moment. You may also like to visit my wine website. I'd be delighted for you to do so. I'm at www.colinharknessonwine.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter, and that's at ColinOnWine. Well, I hope to see you again, and I hope that you've enjoyed this and it gives you some sort of idea about why it is that I'm so passionate about the wines of Spain. Thanks for viewing, thanks for listening, and here's to good drinking.